At its most deconstructed level, a nutcracker is just a bunch of cylinders, and today I'm going to show you how to make an outdoor nutcracker decoration using very common cylinders, tin cans. I'm making mine from 5 cans, but you might have different sizes and can of course use a different configuration. I'm also using a little bit of plastic from a food container and some ornaments to construct my nutcracker. So here's the basic way we will connect the cans, but I do need to close the opening for the body can, which is my largest can. I traced the opening onto my plastic and cut out 2 circles because I wasn't sure if one layer of this plastic would be sturdy enough. Then to glue the plastic and cans together, I'm using a combination of E6000 glue and hot glue. You could probably get through a few seasons with just hot glue, but hot glue sometimes pops apart in colder temperatures. So the E6000 will create a permanent bond and the hot glue will hold it in place while the E6000 cures for 24 hours. To be totally honest, I get kind of nervous using E6000 glue because it's kind of like super glue in the sense that if you get it on something, that thing is going to be glued together forever, but it's even scarier because you might not realize that it's on something until days later when it's cured. Also, the tube that it's in can be a bit messy to get the glue out, and you don't want to get this anywhere. So I do get a bit flustered here and I make some mistakes, which I will point out as we go along so you can avoid them. So on the open end of the body can, I'm first putting E6000 onto the pieces and then a couple dabs of hot glue for an immediate hold. This proved much trickier than expected, and I should have put the glue on the can directly and not on the plastic. Once the first circle was in place, I just glued the second circle on top of it. I probably should have glued these together first and then attached both to the can, but you live, you learn. Now that both ends of the can are sealed, I'm going to attach all the cans together. One of the medium-sized cans is going to be the legs and feet, and the other will be the head. So I'm gluing these to the bottom of the largest can and to the plastic we just attached to the largest can. Once more, I'm first putting some E6000 onto the can, and then I'm putting a couple dabs of hot glue. I didn't line the glue up very well at first, so the hot glue didn't hold it in place the first time. So I had to make a second attempt with the hot glue before it held the cans together. Now here's where I made my next mistake. When attaching the arms, we need to pay attention to 3 things. 1. The little cans need to be placed open end facing downward. 2. The cans need to align with the top of the body can. And 3. The top of the bottom can needs to be solid end up, not plastic end up. I succeeded on the first 2 points, but messed up on the third. It was too late by the time I realized my mistake, so I left it be. I haven't truly ruined the project, but the plastic side doesn't look nearly as nice as the bottom finish end of the can, so that's why I had wanted the plastic to be on the underside of my nutcracker. Anyways, I glued the arms on, and then because this glue smells terribly noxious, I set the project outside so the glue could cure. Double check the temperature outside if you want to let the glue cure out there, but for me the weather was warm enough. I came back to the project a few days later and was ready to start painting. I'm first putting on a coat or 2 of red Rust-Oleum spray paint because that will provide a nice layer to protect the cans and help this project survive outdoors. Again, it does need to be warm enough weather for the spray paint to work well and dry properly. So if it's too cold, you could use some outdoor grade acrylic paints and paint with the brush indoors instead of using spray paint. Then it's time for more decorating. I had some random outdoor grade acrylic paints, so I used those as much as I was able. I started by painting the topmost can a tan color for the face, but I didn't worry about going all the way to the top because that will be painted a different color for the hat. Then I used some gray to create the boots, legs, and shoulder caps. I really debated whether to go with the gray paint because it was outdoor rated or use a black paint that wasn't, and I opted for the outdoor grade paint. However, I think I would have liked the look a lot better if I had used black paint because it would create more contrast with the red, and because the gray makes the whole project look very much like tin cans, which I mean, I know that's what they are, but anyways. Really, with painting your design onto the nutcracker, there's no right or wrong way. Use whatever colors you want, make whatever design you want. That's the beauty of DIY decorations. I looked up pictures of nutcrackers for painting and decorating inspiration, so that's a great way to get ideas, and of course you can use the design I'm showing here as a starting point. The face took a couple of paints so the red wasn't showing through, and then once that dried I added the hat. I probably should have measured and planned out how much space I would need for the face, but I just guesstimated and the face ends up a little bit smushed. At this point, I do want to mention you aren't limited to decorating with just paint. Later I'll use permanent markers, you could use paint pens, you could glue ribbon or other weatherproof items onto your nutcracker, whatever you want to use. But for me, I used some paint to create the face, so I first painted a block of white that I will turn into teeth, and then 2 white circles for eyes. You can cut templates out of paper or trace something to achieve as symmetric of a face as possible. And I'll also link in the cards to my toilet paper tube Nutcracker tutorial because I show some techniques to create the face in greater detail in that video. Once the eyes and teeth dried, I used a red marker to separate out the teeth and a black marker to create the pupils. Neither of these turned out perfect, but such is the nature of DIYing. Then to make the eyes a little less scary, I added a bit of color for the iris and a dab of white glue to create highlights on the eyeballs. I also used a marker to add a mustache and eyebrows, and then realized that I still needed to add a nose. I tried just painting a nose on, but it didn't look right to me. So instead, I cut out a triangle of foam and painted it for the nose. I'll glue that piece on when we glue the ornament hands on. I then moved on to giving the Nutcracker some hair. To add a bit of texture, I mixed baking soda with white chalk paint and dabbed it on with a sponge. It won't have as much texture once it's dried because the baking soda is a leveler, but it will have more texture than if I'd used just paint. At some point, I also added a belt and some details to the front of the jacket. I guess that's what he's wearing. I don't really know what his outfit is. Anyways, to add these, I used permanent markers. I also have some metallic Sharpies, so that was a great way to add extra details. And something else I'll throw out at this point is because my cans are corrugated, I can't say this word today, they have the ridges. Because of that, it makes it a little bit trickier putting the designs on. So some of my details end up a little bit off and I kind of filled way in to even it out. But that's okay, it doesn't have to turn out perfect, there's no pressure on this. But anyways, once I painted all the details I wanted onto my Nutcracker, I let the paint dry. And for the final step, I pulled the E6000 and glue gun back out to attach the nose and the hands. I'm honestly kind of proud of myself because I did a much better job gluing these on than my earlier attempts at gluing. So for the nose, I put E6000 along the top and bottom, but I left a gap in the center for a dab of hot glue. And once I added the hot glue, I stuck it on his face. Also of note is that his mustache somehow grows behind his nose, like between his face and his nose. That's just bad paint and marker placement on my part. Sorry, Nutcracker. Then I turned the project upside down so I could glue the ornaments on his hands. Again, this went so much smoother than earlier. I put E6000 along the can opening, leaving 2 gaps for hot glue. Then I put large dabs of hot glue in the gaps and stuck the ornament in place. I forgot this with the first ornament, but I like to line them up so the seam on the ornament runs left to right. I think it makes that ridge a little less noticeable on the finished project. So then once more, I stuck him on the porch to let the glue cure, and then my Nutcracker was finished. I gotta be honest, there are parts of this project that could have turned out better. Case in point, the plastic sticking up on the top of the can and the crooked paint and markers on his face and body. But overall, I think I was able to pull it off, and hopefully this project has inspired you to give it a try as well. Since I designed this project with the purpose of using it outside, I set my Nutcracker on the porch along with my mini faux tree made from a tomato cage and my pumpkin bucket snowman. Another thing I want to mention with this project is it isn't terribly expensive to make. If you're already buying canned goods, the cans themselves aren't an additional cost if you save them to use for this project. Really where the cost can add up is with the paint. I have a decent collection of paints left over from various projects, so I didn't have to buy paint specifically for this project. But even if you don't have paint on hand and end up buying paint specifically for this project, you only need a few colors, so again, not terribly expensive. And I am all about DIYs and crafts on a budget. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and of course don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video if you enjoyed it. Happy crafting!